This is the latest Remnant Fly. If you don't know what the Remnant Flies are all about, there's a link down in the description, as well as I'll put a link up in the corner here somewhere to the introduction video that explains what these are. These are basically flies that are made from remnants of material that have been saved and sitting around. This is the latest one. Ended up kind of a little bluegill nymph, and that was kind of what I was going for. Originally was thinking about doing some sort of panfish fly, and as I started looking through my materials, I ran across some different materials that just led me down the road of doing a little panfish kind of nymph. So it's very, very simple, straightforward. That's the latest Remnant Fly, and I'll get started tying. I'm going to start the latest Remnant Fly with my hook in the vise. This is a Mustad 3399 in a size 4. I'm going to go ahead and debarb the hook. As I mentioned, this fly started out just thinking about doing some sort of panfish fly. It kind of evolved into a large panfish nymph, which, if you're not familiar with fly fishing for panfish, a lot of your trout nymphs and everything work very well for your panfish, usually in a little bit larger size. So I'm putting a gold bead on this, and this is mostly for some color and weight. So after debarbing the hook, I'll put that bead on and I'll get this back into the vise, and now I'm ready to tie the fly. You could go with a longer shanked hook on this if you want, or even a little bit smaller bead. It depends on what you're looking for. I'm just looking for a short, fat, stubby little nymph fly for some panfish. For thread, I'm going to use a Danville 6/0 in black. Depending on the body color and other things you want to go with on this fly, you could go with something else. Now, if you wanted to, you could also put a few lead wraps behind this bead. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to, and mostly because I want to put those lead wraps up into the bead to kind of help hold the bead in place. So let's backtrack. If you're new to the Remnant Flies, by the way, these are basically off-the-cuff kind of flies. They're made from what I call remnant materials, which is little bits and pieces that, you tie another fly, another nymph or something like this, and you use a little bit of this particular mallard flank for the tailing or something like that, and you end up with this feather that's kind of half used, and you could just pitch it. It served its purpose, but I've, over the years, kind of saved some of these and put them in a box. I thought it'd be kind of neat just to do a series of flies where you just pick stuff out and make something. Whether or not you have an idea in your mind ahead of time, something you're thinking about, you were on the water the other day, something that interests you, or whether you're rooting through the box and you find some things and you just develop a fly that way. So this is some 0.020 lead wire. Somehow I think that's the wrong one that I got. Yes, I did think so. This is a lead-free. This is a 0.015 lead-free lead wire, and I only put maybe about 6 or 8 wraps in there, mostly because then I can shove that up in here, and it's going to kind of help hold that bead in place a little bit. So now I'm going to attach my thread and build that up, just a little bit of a thread dam right there. It's going to help keep that lead forward, stabilizing that bead a little bit. And now I'm going to run my thread all the way down to the end of the shank. If you've ever tied any trout nymphs, you will be very aware of the different pieces and parts that are typically in them. Tails, bodies, ribs, legs maybe, and hackle. So this is going to incorporate the same thing. Now for a tail, I'm going to use some Mallard flank here. This is just some regular gray Mallard flank. Because it's a larger size fly, I'm going to go ahead and probably get anywhere from 12 to 15 barbs here. Isolate those, bunch those together. I'm going to tie those in. I want the tail to be about a shank length long. And when I tie this in, I'm going to go down the hook shank just a little bit because I want these to kind of have a downward direction like that. I'm going to trim these a length. They'll give me a little bit of bulk. I'm going to wrap those down. Bring my thread back down. For a rib, you could use a wire. You could use, whatever you want to for your rib. I have some size 14 Danville silver and gold Mylar. I think I'm going to go with the gold, keeping with the rest of the fly. And then we're going to go with the body on this. I'm going to wrap down a little bit more. For the body, I'm going to just use some yellow wool. You could, if you want to, isolate the strands on these if it's a smaller size hook so that it's not quite so bulky. I'm going to go ahead and just use it the way it is. And what I'm going to do is spread these out just a little bit as I'm wrapping them in so that I get a bit of a taper. I want a little bit narrower taper in the back, and then I can twist it up and or overwrap itself as I get up towards the bead. And I want to stay maybe about an eye length behind the bead here. I'm going to take my wool and I'm going to untwist it to kind of flatten that out a little bit. Cover up those thread wraps. Get a wrap or two in and then let it start kind of twisting up a little bit. And you'll see I'm starting to get a little bit of a taper. And I'm overwrapping just a little bit to get just a little bit of a taper in there. Don't need much. This is going to let the fish know, hey, I'm kind of juicy. Secure that in. Take my hackle pliers. I only need to get about 3 or 4 wraps of this in. I don't need to have a lot of wraps. I'm just looking to make this look segmented, that's all. You could use a wire for this if you wanted to, instead of the tinsel. You could use a dubbed body on this instead of the wool. You use a chenille if you want. It's up to you. I'm going to take a Velcro brush here. If I can find it. There it is. What I want to do is just kind of brush over that wool just a little bit. Tease out just some fibers of that wool. Just to make this look a little bit buggier. Guarantee you once you start catching some panfish, that will get even buggier looking because their little teeth are going to basically pull a lot of that out. So I was thinking up front here, I want to do some rubber legs because rubber legs are always great for panfish flies. And I wanted to do a hackle, so I'm going to put some rubber legs in here, and then I'm going to put in a couple wraps of a Grizzly hackle. These are just some rubber black and white banded, I should say black banded white rubber legs. You can get these from Wapsie and Hairline and other places. I'm going to tie 2 of them. Actually, I'm going to pull those out, and I'm going to trim those in half. So I'm actually going to tie 2 on this side and 2 on the other. Looking at it, I just decided that it looked better with 4 legs on each side. Just looks juicier, buggier, is that a word? If you're into warm water species and warm water flies, you will know that rubber legs just somehow tend to be the thing. And I'm going to leave that right there in the middle of those rubber legs as I tie this in. This is just it's a short little Grizzly hackle off of a hen neck. The tip's broken off on that, but it's got just enough right in here, and they're nice and long enough for a couple of turns right in here. So that's why I saved it. Trim that off. I got a little anchor right there. I'm going to tie that in right here and advance my thread forward. And I'm going to get 1 wrap right between those rubber legs. Like that. And as I come around for the second wrap here, I'm going to bring this forward and get a wrap or 2. That's enough right there, right around the front of them. Get into that fluff a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything. A lot of times with your panfish flies and nymphs, the more action you can provide to it, the more body movement, that sort of thing, especially for panfish, the better off you are. So stroking all of this back a little bit, just so I can get in here, finish that off. I'll put in a 4 or 5 turn whip finish. Some head cement down in there. Now I'll take these rubber legs. I'm going to pull these back forward a little bit. And I'm just going to trim those back just a little bit, not much. Trim those so they're about the same length as that collar. Now, if you don't have the rubber legs or don't want to, this would be a fine fly just the way it is with that collar. Maybe put another wrap of hackle in there, but I think that would work just as well. So there you go, a little panfish fly. You know, sometimes if you're out fishing, especially for smallmouth around here, and they're just being persnickety and you're not able to catch too many of them, sometimes just switching over to a little panfish fly can make an evening. Just catch a number of panfish, have some fun, makes for a nice outing. So there is the latest remnant fly, a little Panfish Nymph. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at the Vice today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. But what's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.